Welcome to Three Count Commentary. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we'll be talking about Monday Night Raw from December the 5th, 2022. An episode of Monday Night Raw that felt like it was 12 hours. It felt like a shift. It felt like a long day at the office. But we got through it. We survived it. Now, there are some notes. We're going to pepper them throughout the episode. One of which would be Corey Graves' comment about the Bloodline and the NWO, which we will put through this episode. The second will be Vince Russo and his commentary about Seth Rollins. We're going to put that in the Seth Rollins portion of the video as well. So the only news, really, and it's not really even news, is that Ric Flair will have a Peacock WWE documentary. He's been talking about this for quite a while. He promised that it will be a lot better than his previous documentaries. Ric Flair has had multiple documentaries about him. This one will apparently also address the dark side of the ring situation. So that's the new twist on this. They didn't use it in the commercial to talk about it, but it's going to be very difficult when somebody has had multiple documentaries about them to dig up new information. It's the same thing with like biographies and biopics and stuff like that. It's what do you leave on the kitchen floor, the cutting room floor rather, and there were some things when they made the early Ric Flair documentaries that he didn't get into, like his alcoholism or his relationship with his family. He's focused a lot on his career in the early WWE documentaries on Ric Flair. Then the outside WWE documentaries, I think he did a 30 for 30 or something like that, focused a lot on his personal life, his alcoholism, his relationship with his children, that sort of thing. Then there was smaller documentaries that popped up here and there, interviews that he did that focused on him being adopted and certain things like that. But then Dark Side of the Ring happened, and that kind of colored Ric Flair's entire career as some kind of sexual abuser or something like that. So he has seen this as a way of finally responding to that situation. And I've seen pretty much every Ric Flair documentary, and I've read Ric Flair's book. It'll probably get more truth when somebody else writes his book. But Ric Flair is going to have as many biographies and biopics and all that kind of stuff as like goddamn Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson at this point. So I don't know how excited you guys would be are for the Ric Flair documentary. I'm interested in how they put it together, but I saw so many WWE personalities in it, like Undertaker and Booker T and guys like that I'm not sure what direction they're going in, whether they're going to be lionizing Rick and, he's the greatest of all time, he's Ric Flair, or is it going to be more of a truth-telling situation where we're getting to the nitty-gritty of some of the things that he was accused of, and some of the other things that has gone on in his career. The death of his son would be another one. I know he's talked extensively about it, and so has Charlotte, and they even wrote a book together where I think they mentioned Reed's passing. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to tell. It's just about, this has been done to death. So that's about it. All right, let's talk about Raw, because that was the only thing, really. Okay. The Usos started Raw. They were supposed to be wrestling Elias and Riddle for the tag team championships. Well, Elias and Riddle were supposed to wrestle them for the tag team championships. The Usos were in the parking lot where Riddle sped past them on his scooter or whatever, and they got real mad about it because they were in a good mood until that happened. Then all of a sudden, Elias walked over, just kind of and just got mauled by Solo Sikoa, and they beat the tar out of him in the parking lot. They murdered a man in that parking lot. Solo Sikoa must have forgot he is no longer on NXT. You just can't go around attacking people in parking lots, just brutally assaulting people in parking lots. You just cannot do that. It's uncouth, okay? So the Usos were in the ring talking about how, hey, the tag team championship match apparently off. Don't have to humiliate Riddle once more. Riddle come out and said that it's not Usi for them to run away from fights. Sami Zayn said that he's the Usologist. He knows what's Usi and what's not Usi. and that the three of them, the Usos and Solo Sikoa, are quite Usi, while Matt Riddle is not Usi. So Matt Riddle said that he had a partner, and it ended up being Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens and Matt Riddle team up for the first time ever versus the tag team champions, the Usos. The match was solid enough. Didn't have too much of a problem with it. During this match, it was announced that Drew McIntyre is actually out of the tag team championship match that was supposed to be on Friday. So both tag team title matches that they booked for this week had to be changed. So the first one, they took Elias out of the match. For who knows why. We'll talk about that in a second. And they're taking Sheamus and Drew McIntyre out, and I think they're putting Butch and Ridge Holland in. So I think Butch or Ridge Holland will take Drew McIntyre's spot. I forgot how it went. I just wrote in the margins of my notes that Drew is out. He's medically disqualified or something, they said. So I mean, there that goes. There it is. It's kind of silly as far as I'm concerned. All right. So Elias. Well, obviously the Usos won. I mean, I don't even need to go into that, right? One and done on Riddle. So Elias being written off TV. Is this going to be the death of the Elias character again? Where we're going to take the guy off TV, make him grow a beard, and then now we're going to kill him and make him a lot Ezekiel again? I don't know. The whole Elias rebirth experiment has been absolutely an abortion. Triple H and his team have ruined this. They've ruined this completely. They've also dropped the ball tremendously on Riddle. Riddle used to get huge reactions. He used to be the favorite of especially children and the audience. Now Riddle is kind of an afterthought. He's still doing the comedic part, but he's not serious at all. He has no forward trajectory to his career at all. It's just, I don't even understand how he even got in this position to be wrestling the Usos. It just happened. Now, they did try to add some kind of storyline element to it with Kevin Owens, as Kevin Owens, of course, is now involved with Sami Zayn and the Usos from, he has a long history with Sami Zayn. He has a long history with the Usos, too. So, at least that was an attempt to have story injected into this. But I was questioning what they would even do, because why would you even put Kevin Owens in this position for him to lose? I don't know. But anyway, after the one and done, Kevin Owens chased off the Usos, who were continuously beating up Riddle. He chased all three of them, being the Usos and Sami Zayn, off with chairs. This left Solo Sikoa alone with Riddle, and he just decided he's going to have Riddle for lunch. And Samoan Spike, hip attacked him with the chair across his head, Pillmanized him, just beat the guy to death. Nobody did anything. This is one of those times when you have to kind of be like a Vince Russo, not a Vince Russo, but like a Jim Cornette. This beating went on for so long. You're like, okay, Kevin Owens never thought to turn around and come back. Like, this thing just went on forever. He's beating the shit out of Riddle out there, and nobody did anything. Oddly enough. Other guys did save, like, to jump ahead, I'm pretty sure most of us saw the show. The Street Profits ran out to help fucking Akira Tozawa. They didn't help Riddle, though. What? Yeah, I said the Street Profits, the guys who probably should want to be the tag team champions. They came out to help Akira Tozawa. They did not come out to help Riddle. Okay. That's all you need to know about, the way WWE is booking things. It's very weird. It's very strange. We'll talk more about Akira Tozawa and Dominic Mysterio in a minute. All right, so because this was really the stretcher job on Riddle I think it was very well done. It made Solo Sikoa look like an absolute monster. And I like how coolly he walked away. He put his hoodie on and put his hands in his pockets and just kind of walked off. Just kind of like, what's done is done. Like it's over. And they made good on their original threat of leaving Riddle just like they left his partner. So your bad guys have credibility. They whooped that ass, and now we've written off these guys again. Okay, so this was all the Usos really did throughout the night. which was fine. I think they're kind of overexposed a little bit in terms of having to wrestle 2 tag team championship matches in a week. Against, the Friday match at least made sense because they were defeated by Sheamus and McIntyre. This match, the Monday match, made no sense at all. These guys are not legitimate contenders. Even if it was Elias and Riddle, they're not legitimate contenders. They're not even a legitimate tag team. It literally made no sense. It was a waste of time. But the overexposure of the Usos and the Bloodline, both been on both shows, does lead to some comparisons to the NWO. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard this, but I'm going to actually read what Corey Graves said about the Bloodline in comparison to the NWO, and I actually agree with it, and that's going to bother some people. But he says, quote, "These guys are going to run this place for the foreseeable future. There are so many exciting ways that this could go, and I dare say this is a more compelling situation than the NWO because of the reality behind it. When I say they are as deep as they are dangerous, I mean it with every fiber of my being. I gush about these guys constantly. They're my favorite on screen, but they're also a lot of my favorites off screen. I truly believe everything that they do. But for my money right now, the Bloodline is on its way to being as hot of an act that endures the test of time in this business, second maybe only to the NWO." So, there are certain parts of this that I agree with. I think that the key word here is compelling. I know some people are going to look at this and they think compelling and popular means the same thing. It does not. When you look at the word compelling and what the word compelling means, and you also have to look at the structure of the NWO versus the structure of the Bloodline, all right? This is what makes these two things different. This is what makes the Bloodline one of my favorite factions. It's a very unique type of faction where it's not a situation where guys are joined together under a similar ideology like DX or with a specific purpose like Evolution or the NWO will also be a specific purpose. There's 100 different ways for you to form a faction. This is a faction based off of what it's called blood, right? So you have this deep family where there's tons of wrestling NOIs that you could eventually bring into the Bloodline. And that's what Corey Graves is thinking about when he's talking about they have the potential to go into the future, is that it doesn't have to be over when Roman leaves. You could easily bring in another NOIE. And I don't know how many of them are still floating out there, like a Jacob Fatu, for instance, if he ever gets free from that MLW deal, and he could take over Roman's spot easily. And I believe he can. Maybe he doesn't have the same gravitas in terms of character and that sort of thing, but he's a big, imposing figure that you would instantly believe is the next one from that family that could be the man. Then you also have the ancillary relationships with people of the past, like Rikishi and I was about to call them the head shrinkers, the Wild Samoans. Then, of course, The Rock. You have a lot of different stuff going on here with the Bloodline. So there's a lot of different people who could join. But then you have Sami Zayn, which is a situation where this guy he's kind of a groupie, but he's also sort of being accepted, but not so much. Not as much as everybody thinks he is. But he's kind of being accepted. And then they're doing all the interrelationship stuff. Like everything with the Bloodline, the storyline's been going on for a while now. The stuff with the Bloodline has started with Jay and Roman. And to me, it has to end with Jay and Roman. So whatever they do with this title or whatever, Jay Uso has to beat Roman Reigns at some point. That's how I feel. I know he doesn't have to win the title. Let's put it like that. But he has to beat Roman Reigns at some point. To me, that's how I would write the story. The ending has to hang on the beginning, and everything within the middle has to make sense. So before Roman leaves, I would have him put over Jey Uso at some point in a singles match. But of course, he have lost the belt, wrestled Rock, all that kind of stuff before the end. But ultimately, when you look at the word compelling and what it means, the Usos and Roman, they've been doing dramatics. They haven't been doing cool stuff. The coolness comes from them being who they are. They've been doing mostly drama. A will they, won't they? How is Roman going to manipulate Jay? How is Roman going to manipulate Jimmy? You know, is Jimmy and Jay on the same page? You know, what's Solo Sikoa? How does he fit in? What is his role in the bloodline? What's the role between Roman and Solo? They didn't really have too much interaction. Of course, you enter Sami Zayn, and it's been weekly amounts of that has continued to make this fresh for over a year. Like the bloodline has been doing this stuff for over a year, but it all feels like it's not been that long. You know, like to me, the NWO outside of the first year or some change went way too long. And wasn't compelling. It was popular, definitely, because of the situation that they created. Like if you break down the NWO, what was the thing with the NWO, right? It was Scott Hall appearing. It was like, what is he doing here? Okay, that's compelling. That's interesting. What is he doing here? You know, we just saw Razor Ramon on Raw last week. Now he's on Nitro. Like, wow, what is he doing here? And then you drag that story along. He's like, he's going to bring his friend in, yada, yada, yada. We find out it's Kevin Nash. Oh, shit. All right. Now we got something cooking. We're like Hall and Nash, and both of these guys are former WWE guys, and they're invading WCW. Okay, I like that. You know, that's good. That's great. That's what took the NWO to the next level. And then you see there's going to be a third person in this group. And you find out it's fucking Hulk Hogan. Like, you can't top that. You can't beat that as far as a reveal. Even if it was spoiled a little bit by Bobby the Brain Heenan, you can't throw that off as a reveal. It's one of the greatest, probably the greatest storyline reveal, especially of my childhood. You know, I've seen some really fucked up stuff in stories that I was kind of like, you know, like, oh shit. But Hulk Hogan joining the NWO tops it. Among like video games, books that I've read, all kinds of shit. Hulk Hogan joining the NWO is like near the top of that surprise twist that I've ever experienced, you know. And then from there, the NWO is off and running. So, but that's really was the compelling part of the NWO. You know, who is going to be the next member? Who's going to be the next guy to join the NWO? And then once the NWO got so bloated that, you know, the next guy was fucking Stevie Ray or Scott Norton or you know, Virgil or whatever, it went away from it being what it was originally supposed to be, which was an invading force in WCW. And you could say, well, as an invading force, sure, you would have a guy like X-Pac in it. Okay. He was, you know, one of the clique dudes. It made sense. Ted DiBiase, okay, he's a WWF guy. It kind of makes sense. But Scott Norton, Stevie Ray, but you got to have guys. If it's supposed to be like a rival organization, you've got to have top level guys and bottom level guys, right? You got to have mid card guys. And it's like, well, if that's the goal, which it was, if that was the plan, which it was, you destroyed the company because you got NWO guys getting beat in like half the show, and the other half of these guys are unbeatable. You know, so it makes no sense. It's kind of stupid, you know. And then it went too long. Like if you'd have had the NWO versus Sting, and then that was it, or Goldberg, one of the two. I mean, you had that's '97 with Sting, a few months later with Goldberg. If you had ended it at Sting, would have been great. Ended it at Goldberg would have also been great. But they continued it like forever and ever. And the popularity of the NWO started to wane over time. Then it split in two. The Bloodline is not going to do that. The Bloodline doesn't have that factor because not everybody can be a member of the Bloodline. It's an exclusive club. It's built on family. So now you're getting family dynamics. That makes it a lot different. And to me, far more interesting than this, I don't know, what would you call it? I would say the first year and a half of the NWO was very interesting, you know, until various people who never was in WWF started jumping shit, like the Giants and all that kind of stuff. The stuff with Sting was very interesting too. You know, is Sting joining the NWO, Randy Savage joining, all that shit was fun. But eventually it got to the point where you were kind of like, you know, I don't care about this guy, and this guy's a member of the NWO. I don't care about that guy. He's a member of the NWO. And the NWO was just all up and throughout the show, and it went off the rails. As long as in the Bloodline, to their credit, to the NWO's credit, it's not been going on as long as the NWO did. And I don't think it will. I think the Bloodline story probably has another year or two in it before it's over. And like I said, it has to end at some point, depending on what they do at WrestleMania this year. It may actually end in a few months. But for my money, what they've been doing with the Bloodline is excellent stuff, and far more gratifying than what they've been doing with the NWO. Because the NWO were trying to be cool every week. They were coming up with different. Well, I mean, the Bloodline, they're doing catchphrases and stuff too. But the difference being the Hulk Hogan piece. Roman Reigns turning heel was not that big of a deal. Him having a faction, not that big of a deal. He was a member of the Shield. It's not that big of a deal. Hogan turning heel was massive for the entire business. It shifted the entire business in a different direction. So nobody can argue whether the NWO was more popular than the Bloodline or Evolution or DX or whatever. Clearly it was. Clearly it was probably even more popular than the Four Horsemen. What I think is the GOAT as terms of factions are concerned. Because they made factions popular, made factions cool. Well, I guess you could count the Freebirds, so the Freebirds too, but not as many people are familiar with the Freebirds as they are with the Four Horsemen. So you have a completely different dynamic. And for this generation of fans who are watching this particular product, who didn't watch the NWO, who didn't watch Evolution or DX and the Four Horsemen and all of them, this is their version of the Four Horsemen, and it just happens to be built on family. And a lot of the family dynamics is making it more interesting television than the loose strings of we worked together in New York and now we're going to continue working together to destroy WCW. And then also this guy never worked with us in New York, but we trust him and he's our guy. Eric Bischoff, for instance. That kind of thing. So I actually don't see a problem with what Corey Graves said. And I actually agree with it. I think the implications of if they were to keep the Bloodline as a storyline that kind of goes forward, you probably could have more Bloodline stuff in the future. Definitely either Solo Sikoa could take over. You could bring in some more people from the outside who are, training or something like that. You got the Ava Raine, you got The Rock, you got a lot of different stuff going on where the Bloodline can actually continue to operate even without Roman. Hell, even without the Usos, Now, of course, they have to pay off certain elements. You have to pay off the Sami Zayn honorary Us part of the storyline. You have to pay that part off, and they eventually will. And that part probably will be at WrestleMania. Then you'll have to start a new chapter. Like they had to pay off the Roman and Jay story, and then the Jimmy and Jay story, and then the collection of the Usos with the and all that kind of stuff. Like you have this overarching story, but then you have the little elements in between. And I think they actually do the little elements better than the NWO, because outside of is Sting going to join the NWO, and we find out, of course, that he's not. Outside of that, the NWO didn't have any type of compelling relationships between the two characters. It was just kind of Hall, Nash, and their friends, and then they were friends, and there was no. I guess eventually they did do the whole Nash dealing with Hall being a drunk. I guess they did have that, but I don't know if that was a compelling storyline to me. And it felt like Kevin Nash Hart wasn't in it, and neither was Hall and Hart. It was a little too real for them, and I don't think they enjoyed it very much. But generally speaking, I like both groups, but I didn't see anything wrong with what Corey Graves said, and a lot of people were dumping on him, talking about how he's stupid and they'll never be as popular as the NWO because everything that happened in 1998 is the best. It's like, clearly we get it. The business was in a completely different place when the NWO took off. And to be fair, it was the reason why the business, especially WCW, took off. So you can't deny that and you can't ignore it. But to say that the Bloodline isn't, quickly becoming, interesting characters, far more interesting than one of the hundreds of millions of knockoffs of the NWO, yeah. Without a doubt, they're far more interesting than fucking Aces and Eights or, any of these other stupid groups. AEW's had like 400 fucking factions, none of them have been too interesting. But the Bloodline has been one faction, has been going on for over a year and has been very, very interesting. And the only thing that I have a problem with is they haven't had major competition. And that's where I think like them breaking up the Hurt Business was real dumb. You know, that was stupid because the Hurt Business could have been a really good competition for the Bloodline. But moving on, I spent way too much time on that. I spent more time on it than I wanted to because I wanted to be clear. So Rhea Ripley cutting a promo, talking about wrestling Bianca Belair and making the entire locker room call her Mommy because she's going to wrestle in a triple threat match. So they decided to do these triple threat eliminators where, you know, the winners of each triple threat match will wrestle each other the next week on Raw. And the winner of that will wrestle Bianca Belair for the title, I'm guessing, at the Royal Rumble. So the first match was Bayley, Rhea Ripley, and Asuka. So this was a tough one. This one was pretty good. Bayley had some really tough opponents here. Not like Becky, but she had some really tough opponents here. So Bayley, before the match started, she got into a conversation with Becky. And Becky talked about there being 3 years since they've ever gone one-on-one. And gave Bayley some credit for carrying the company through the Thunderdome era when she wasn't there. Bayley said that she, unlike Becky, has been trying to move the business forward and that Becky doesn't care about anybody but herself, while Bayley cares about the WWE and has been looking out for the future and for the women's locker room. Becky Lynch said that Bayley was the loser of Damage Control and hoped that Bayley won this match so that they can make history against each other later on. Then we got something that was very interesting that I actually really loved, even though it went on just a tad bit too long. Rhea Ripley did her entrance while Becky Lynch was leaving. And they got a stare down between Rhea and Becky. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't really realize it until that moment. I'm like, there's a lot of money left on the table with Rhea Ripley. And she's been in the company 2 years already. And her only opponents have really been Asuka and Charlotte, you know. And she spent a lot of time wrestling like Liv Morgan and Nikki Cross or whatever. But like big money matches, she hasn't wrestled Bianca yet on the main roster, you know, and she hasn't wrestled, you know, Bayley, and she hasn't wrestled Becky Lynch. So them foreshadowing a Rhea Ripley Becky match and a Rhea Ripley Bayley match, you know, in the same segment, I thought was very cool. You know, give people the opportunity to make the decision. Like, do you want to see Becky and Bayley go one-on-one for the first time in 3 years? And they were teasing that. Or do you want to see Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch? And getting people excited for that too. And of course, Bayley wins the match. Rhea Ripley lost, and she wasn't happy about that. But she didn't lose. Asuka was the one who got pinned. So that was interesting. I liked the hook there. It got you to watch the later part of the show because it got you to believe that perhaps, just maybe, you're going to see Becky Lynch versus Bayley or Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. And then they did a twist. Alexa Bliss wins the other triple threat match. The match was Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, and Becky Lynch. Backstage, Alexa Bliss was stretching and they teased more Bray Wyatt stuff backstage. They still haven't done anything yet. But it's clear whenever she's around and there's a monitor or whatever around that she's being, I'm guessing, watched. So they're watching Alexa Bliss. Bray is watching her. So Alexa Bliss wins because Damage Control, Io and Dakota, actually pulled Becky out of the ring, beat her up, and put her through a table. So it's almost as if Bayley was picking her own opponent. So Alexa Bliss wins the match. And it makes sense because Alexa Bliss, they've been telling this story with her that she hasn't won a singles title. She hasn't had a singles title in 3 years or something like that, 3 or 4 years. And a lot of people were expecting her to turn heel during that War Games feud due to her, you know, kind of being sort of standoffish with Bianca. And I'm guessing we're going to that. So that means that they're probably about to go with Becky costing Bayley her match next week. And Bliss versus Bianca at the Royal Rumble. That seems to be the goal here. Now, Bianca versus Alexa Bliss, that's not exactly tantalizing. But it has the Bray Wyatt stuff looming over it. So that makes it somewhat interesting. But the Becky Lynch versus Damage Control stuff is going to continue. So if you're into Damage Control, which I'm not, you might find that fun. I find the idea of Becky Lynch wrestling Io Shirai or Io Sky, I find that to be fun. I actually look forward to that. I'm not looking forward to that Becky Lynch versus Dakota Kai match at all. But the Bayley Becky Lynch match, okay, yeah, because I didn't remember them wrestling each other that much. Anyway, so them saying that they haven't wrestled in 3 years was kind of new to me. I was like, all right, cool. They haven't gotten into it in a while. So they teased some stuff that they didn't deliver, but who knows? It might get paid off later because the Royal Rumble is right around the corner. And likely you're probably going to see Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch face each other in that match. Maybe they'll be the last two. If they book it correctly, they will be the last two. It would be probably Becky starts and then goes all the way to the end when Rhea Ripley comes in at some point in the middle, maybe even at the end, and she eliminates Becky in order to win the match. That's how I would do it. I wouldn't have Rhea Ripley start the match and then win it because that's a babyface thing to do. Even if you want to, she's a monster. Like, no, she's a heel. Put her in near the end. 28, 29 or whatever. And Becky's in there, been in there since the beginning, and she gets thrown out. Puts over Becky, puts over Rhea, and you get the match that you want, which is Bianca and Rhea. Good, right? That's what I'm guessing they're going to do. And they'll probably do some kind of Becky Rhea match between then and WrestleMania, or maybe even after WrestleMania, which I'm guessing Rhea Ripley will win the belt then. So that makes sense to me. But the triple threat match idea just feels very AEW. It feels very TNA, because TNA literally does stuff like this. It's very, very NWA. The NWA does stuff like this. We don't want to give away any of these matches individually, like in a tournament, like a singles match. So we're making a triple threat match. And, okay, then the winners of the triple threat match will wrestle each other. Okay, sure. Now we're stuck with Bayley versus Alexa Bliss, which, shrug, Alexa Bliss needs to up her game quite a bit in order to be interesting in today, because it seems like Liv Morgan stole all her small girl juice. Alexa Bliss ain't got none left. She's been squeezed dry. Now Liv Morgan has stolen it all. All right, let's move on real quick. JBL has a poker invitational tournament, which he starts by saying there's a $50K buy-in. And I looked at all these broke people in the room, and I'm saying, Akira Tozawa is in this room. You said there's a $50K buy-in and Tamina is in this room? No. I already don't believe it, okay? $50,000 is needed to play and Tamina is here? Dana Brooke is here? Like, what? Dominic Mysterio is here? He must have got that Christmas money early. We know Dominic ain't got no goddamn money. Look at him. Anyway, JBL is confronted with Gargano and Dexter Lumis. Johnny Gargano is now Dexter Lumis' voice, apparently. JBL makes a reference to Dexter Lumis not getting memos from Crystal Lake, which of course is Jason Voorhees. But he's got $50,000, so apparently he's in. He's in the poker tournament. Chad Gable thinks that he wins in the poker tournament. He ends up arguing with Gallows, who calls him a nerd. Shoosh, nerd. Shoosh, nerd. I was like, oh, I want to kill both of these fucking guys. Like, I just want to knock their heads together like the Three Stooges. Like, I hate when they do shit like this. It sucks so bad. And then at one point, Dexter Lumis pulls out an axe and puts it on the table. Just like, dude. It was a big axe, not like the hatchet he had at the wedding, but like the grandfather of that hatchet was like sitting next to him. So ridiculous. All right, so at this point, Akira Tozawa and Dominic Mysterio get into an argument on the second table. They start to stand off, and JBL has said, look, he don't want no fighting at his poker tournament because poker is a gentleman's game. He told these guys no fighting. This led to the match of Akira Tozawa versus Dominic Mysterio, which we certainly did not need. Certainly didn't need that. Dominic Mysterio wins the match. Of course he does. Then Judgment Day decided they were going to jump Akira Tozawa and beat the tar out of him. And then the Street Profits, like I said earlier, saved Akira Tozawa. It was as dumb as it sounded. It was just as dumb as it sounded. It was stupid. I don't understand. The Street Profits feuding with Judgment Day. Okay, I guess. So Judgment Day got to do something. And I guess they're going to end up paying it off eventually when Rhea and Bianca starts getting into it. So that's the hope there, is that the Street Profits and Judgment Day will feud, and then it will cross with Rhea Ripley and Bianca feuding in the future, which I'm guessing is going to be, I don't know when the Royal Rumble is. Is it early January, late January, whatever? But I'm guessing it's going to, eventually those two things are going to cross paths. And it's going to be Bianca and the Street Profits against Rhea Ripley and Judgment Day. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm hoping for, because I'm not interested in fucking Street Profits wrestling Judgment Day. To me, it seemed like a step back. But then again, the OC, who cares? So, speaking of which, the OC defeated Baron Corbin and Alpha Academy in a match that was entirely too long. That also spun out of JBL's Invitational Poker Tournament. As, like I said, Chad Gable got into an argument with Luke Gallows. And AJ Styles got into an argument with Baron Corbin, as Corbin, I guess, was cheating, and AJ Styles called him out on it. AJ Styles, I believe, has $50,000. The Good Brothers, do I believe they have $50,000? Well, they were working for Impact. What was this, a month ago? They probably are $50,000 in debt to Uncle Allen, who probably loaned them the money to be there. Because there's just no way you were working for Impact and you have $50,000 a couple of weeks later. It's just not possible. After you caught up on your mortgage and paid off all your kids' student loans and everything, going into debt working for Impact, I'm pretty sure you ain't got no money now. Just saying. But Uncle Allen's been collecting WWE checks for 7 years, so I'm pretty sure he might have something. Anyway, that match was stupid and it lasted too long. JBL is hanging out with The Miz. This was before the Corbin and AJ Styles argument. The Miz is just, he's great. He's grinning like a motherfucker. He's upset that he was not invited to the poker tournament, to which JBL says, well, look, I must have got lost in the mail, because you are absolutely invited, which is incredible considering how JBL hates The Miz. IRL, he hates The Miz. And IRL has been hating The Miz for, 17 years? Since 2004? He's not like The Miz. Anyway, The Miz was told $50,000 to get in, and now The Miz is kind of like, well, the crypto market has tanked a little bit. I don't know what's over there. The Miz is like a smart guy. Why would he get involved with crypto? Why would he get involved with crypto? Anyway, crypto market's down, and he had to pay, Dexter Lumis all this money. So he doesn't quite have $50,000 liquid. He's got $50,000, but he doesn't have it in cash. And JBL's like, look, it has to be cash. And he doesn't think The Miz is good for it because The Miz refused to pay Dexter Lumis. So we got some kind of continuity here that JBL is like, look, The Miz doesn't pay his debts, so we don't deal with that kind of stuff around here. The Miz then says he's willing to pawn his watch to get into the game. And then JBL says, your watch is fake. And The Miz is kind of like, what? Like, it's not a real Rolex. So I guess we're going to go with broke Miz. That The Miz is broke now, which could be infinitely more funny than Baron Corbin being broke. Because with broke Miz, we have to get broke Maurice. And broke Maurice could be fucking hilarious because we've never seen her in that position before. And it's antithetical to the Maurice character for her to be involved with poverty in any way. So if they go with broke Miz, I think that would be excellent. That would be funny as fuck. That would be comedic gold. And yes, it would be, they just did this with Baron Corbin and him not having any money. But I think it would be even funnier with The Miz. The Miz was forced to grow like a beard. Because you know how funny The Miz looked with a beard, right? But he's just not Hollywood A-level Miz. Because he's been doing this forever. The Miz has been doing this sort of Hollywood character for a really, really long time. He's needed something different. So that's why I'm kind of headcanon the concept of The Miz going broke, or The Miz not having the money that he's pretending to have. And it could be very fun. I know he could pull that off. But JBL, big dog in The Miz is classic JBL and Miz situation. Where is that going? I don't know. We'll have to see. But Johnny Gargano and Dexter Lumis, they won all the money. Apparently, they won a lot of money. They got it all. They went and found Candice LeRae, who is cutting a promo about Damage Control. She's been on the roster for like 2 months now, and she's like, well, I'm still the new girl around here. I'm not going to let anybody push me around. And I was like, ugh. And before Gargano and Lumis show up with a lot of money, and they talk about buying stuff for the baby, so they're going to sort of rebuild the way on Raw, minus Austin Theory or Indy Hartwell, who, to be quite honest, are integral parts of the way working. The Garganos were only funny and entertaining when they had Indy and Austin Theory and Dexter Lumis to play off of. They still got Dexter Lumis. Maybe they'll get Indy Hartwell eventually, but I don't know. We'll see. But apparently now they're in the money. The Garganos and Dexter Lumis have tons of money, and they hooked up with Candice LeRae, and Candice LeRae is still feuding with Damage Control. So I'm guessing that when Becky Lynch needs a partner, she's going to look to Candice LeRae. Okay. Okay, sure, whatever. Sure. Either that or Candice LeRae is going to need a partner and to wrestle Io and Dakota. And there is no real choice. Like, who is Dana Brooke? Tamina? I mean, they playing poker over here. They rich, I guess. I guess it would have to be Becky Lynch, wouldn't it? Because she's feuding with Damage Control. So maybe that's the direction that they go into. That would be a huge push for Candice, for her to be Becky Lynch's tag team partner for even of a short amount of time. Could be interesting, but that's the direction they seem to be going in. Okay, sure, whatever you say, boss. I don't care about Candice LeRae. I don't care about Dakota Kai. You could. They could fight, they could fuck, they could fly into the sun. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Not one bit. But that's the direction they seem to be going in. Okay. So Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is cutting a promo. Apparently he's going to wrestle Bobby Lashley next week to see who is going to be the real number one contender for Austin Theory's United States Championship. So, as Rollins was kind of getting started talking ish about Lashley, he's interrupted by Lashley himself, who wanted to know what Seth Rollins had to say. He wanted him to say it to his face. So Seth Rollins said that he ain't been the same since he lost to Brock, and that he's obsessed with Brock and maybe even a little scared. Said that Brock is bigger and stronger. So Lashley got into his face and was like, look, I ain't scared of Brock. I'll beat his ass. So then he's like, okay, maybe you're not scared. Maybe you're just jealous. Maybe, Brock has had the career you think that you should have had. And then said that Bobby Lashley being focused on Brock Lesnar is going to make it easier for him to win their match next week. And then they got to fight. And when they fought, Bobby Lashley ended up spearing one of the officials. I think it was Petey Williams. And so Seth Rollins, of course, got the hell out of there. Bobby Lashley, got chastised by Adam Pearce, who said that he can't have Bobby Lashley out here beating up his officials. He can't let it happen. He don't want no more mistakes. He don't want this happening again. Lashley was, it was okay. He was wearing a suit, which is nice, which, gives me Hurt Business vibes. And maybe they're foreshadowing some Hurt Business stuff here. Maybe MVP is going to have to help Lashley once he beats up another official, which is bound to happen. It's going to happen again, right? It's got to happen again. But Seth Rollins, I like the Seth Rollins angle of him finding the weakness of a guy and playing that card. He knows that Bobby Lashley has a thing about Brock Lesnar. And it's been a long time coming. It's even before they even started having matches. He's been calling out Brock. And there might be some jealousy there, that Bob might be jealous of Brock and saying like, hey, I should have been, the guy who got all these spots and all these opportunities. And we know that from the promos, Lashley said that Brock was ducking him. He was running from him. So they're foreshadowing more Lashley Lesnar matches, which we heard that they're going to wrestle again at the Royal Rumble. At least that's what I heard. And Rollins is kind of playing into that, but also playing into the fact that Lashley isn't fully focused on being a United States champion, even though he's in a storyline for the United States title. He's actually looking beyond that to getting his hands on Brock Lesnar again. So, and then they also have this second or third storyline with him and Adam Pearce, where they're starting that thing again. So I like what they're doing with Lashley right now. Seth Rollins is kind of stuck in this United States title thing. And interestingly enough, Vince Russo made a comment about Seth Rollins. And I really want to get people's thoughts on it. He says, he being Vince Russo, pronouns, pal. He said, bro, listen, bro. Come on, bro. Let's be honest. If you're looking at Seth Rollins right now, bro, 2 levels for the Hall of Fame is what you're looking at. Okay, bro, he's a good little hand and a number 2, bro. He's been there for a while, bro. Guess what, bro? If that's how the Baseball Hall of Fame works, bro, everybody would be in it. If you're there, you're a good little hand, bro. And then if you stick around for X number of years, bro, everybody would be in it, bro. There's got to be something special, bro. Something special about you, bro. What is special about the dude? Saying there's nothing special about Seth Rollins. Vince Russo is not known as being a good evaluator of talent. He's just not a good evaluator of talent. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that Vince Russo organically said to himself, you know what, I can take this guy and make him a star. He's got something. He's got the stuff. He could put the belt on a guy, but can he actually make somebody a star? No. He has almost zero. He put the belt on AJ Styles. Let's be honest. When he was booking TNA, I think it was his idea to put the belt on AJ Styles. But then you look at that version of AJ Styles, and it was a knockoff version of DX called SEX or whatever the fuck. And he was constantly feuding with Jeff Jarrett, and Vince Russo booking Jeff Jarrett as the fucking champion. I think if you go back to WCW, it was his idea to put the belt on Booker T. But Booker T was already over, and was over before he got there. So it was just kind of, hey, we need to make a new star. We're going to put it on this guy. And that was it. And then, to be quite honest, it was Vince Russo's whole thing to go with Jarrett and Hogan. All right? Again, Jarrett and Hogan. I don't exactly trust Vince Russo's talent evaluation skills. All right? So, when he says there's nothing special about a guy, I don't really take that too seriously. I think most people see that Seth Rollins is a special talent. Is he a mega star? No. I will say that. And Seth Rollins is one of my favorite wrestlers, so I'm being a little bit biased. But no, he's not. They're trying to position Seth Rollins as the Randy Savage to the Roman Reigns' Hulk Hogan. That's what they're trying to do. Okay? He's going to be the Randy Orton to Roman Reigns' John Cena. That's the goal. He can't be the Rock to, Roman Reigns' Austin. More like the Triple H to Roman Reigns being the Rock in that situation, right? He's not necessarily the guy, but he's the guy who works with the guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I say all the time, when people start talking about WWE Hall of Fame and all this kind of stuff and what is the criteria, and I say, there's offensive linemen in the Hall of Fame, the National Football Hall of Fame. They don't score touchdowns. They don't rack up rushing yards. No offensive lineman is going to win a Heisman Trophy or anything like that. They're not going to be the MVP of the game, but there's offensive linemen in the Hall of Fame. There's people who are really, really, really good role players who are in the Hall of Fame because they were good role players for a long time. Now, people have You know, like one of the most interesting things with some people is they talk about how many rings a guy has. Like, you know, how many chips did he win? How many times LeBron James went to the finals? And then you see like somebody like Robert Horry has like 6 championship rings. Guy's not in the conversation at all as being one of the best basketball players of all time. He's not. He's got 6 championship rings though. So even if you want to say championship rings are what make you a Hall of Fame player, then well, Robert Horry should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and he may be. I don't know. I didn't ever watched it. I probably never watched more than 4 Robert Horry games. I think that's when he played for the Lakers against the Pistons. If I remember, he might not even been on that team, but I think he was. But I don't know that much about Robert Horry. I'm not a basketball guy, but I know that somebody showed me that he won 6 championships. Like, that's pretty fucking impressive. Now, he's part of a team, but he won 6 championships. There's going to be people in the NBA Hall of Fame with 0 rings, like Allen Iverson. All right? Allen Iverson never won anything. He's going to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. You know? So why wouldn't Robert Horry? Robert Horry isn't a star, but he's got 6 fucking championships, so he obviously was good at something. He's a good role player. And we have this conversation all the time as people who are wrestling fans about who deserves to be in there in this kayfabe situation where, you know, somebody is deciding who wins all these titles and, you know, all this stuff. But in like real life sports, there's a lot of people who get jobbed out, who, you know, were successful and didn't get that look. And, some people just have every excuse in the world why he shouldn't be in there. Like, there's people, and I stumbled across this, so because I'm not a basketball guy, about Robert Horry not being in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and that, you know, there are people who are in the Hall of Fame who say he should be there, and then there's all these sports reporters and people who never played the game who are saying he shouldn't be in there because he was a role player, he's a guy who came off the bench, and all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting, this conversation that people have been having about whether Robert Horry should be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And it's like, well, if you decide that championships matter, he's got more than most. But if it's individual, whether he was an MVP of a game, whether he, you know, won a gold medal, was on the Olympic team, or, you know, the entirety of his career, then maybe not. He shouldn't be. But that depends on what you're looking at, you know, and wrestling is the exact same way. Sure, at the end of the day, it was one person, Vince McMahon, making these decisions. But it depends on what you were looking at. Because there are people who are certified Hall of Famers without a doubt, and they never won a world title. Ted DiBiase being one of them. Kurt Hennig, he won the AWA world title, but if you say that don't count, then Mr. Perfect. You know, plenty of guys who are Hall of Famers without winning world championships. Then there's guys who won world titles where you would cringe if they were put in the Hall of Fame. You know? And, you know, it's just, you know, Jinder Mahal, for instance, or Great Khali, you know. But the Great Khali has more of a legacy than anything because, you know, he's the pride of 6 billion people or whatever the fuck. But that's like my overall idea, is that when you look at Seth Rollins and his success, and he has been a success, has he been a smashing, over-the-top, you know, success? No. Has he been a great role player who can bring out the best in his opponents? Like, look at what he did with Cody Rhodes this year. Just this year alone, being Cody Rhodes' introductory opponent, how he was able to bring out the best in Cody, how he was able to bring out the best in Edge over the last year or so. You know, he has been tremendous. And to say that there's nothing special about him means that you're just not good at evaluating talent. You don't know what the fuck you're looking at. You know? Now, is he going to be the most over-the-top character? Well, he is now, in terms of how flamboyantly he dresses and how flamboyantly he looks. But that's them, again, leaning into he's the Randy Savage to Roman's Hulk Hogan sort of idea, right? He's going to be the colorful, over-the-top villain. But I can understand why people would say, you know, Seth Rollins isn't, you know, one of the GOATs. But I would say for this generation, he is. He absolutely is. You know, there's people who, again, look at Shawn Michaels in 97 or 98 and say there's nothing special about this guy. Or like Stone Cold Steve Austin even said, like, he said that Shawn Michaels was a high spot guy. And it took for him to actually work with Shawn before he actually realized what Shawn brought to the table. And sometimes it took even longer for some people because, yeah, Shawn didn't draw in 96. He was a bigger star in his second run than he was in the first. You know, especially near the end of the first. He kind of took it to the next level with the DX stuff. But his first run, 95, 96, people didn't really get Shawn. They didn't really care. But now, people who, there's tons of people, whether it's indie wrestlers, older wrestlers, whatever, will give Shawn his flowers. It took a while, like not everybody's going to be Hulk Hogan. Not everybody's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, where their impact is immediate. Some people are Eddie Guerreros, where it takes for them to do it for a long enough time that people go back and say, you know what, damn, he was really fucking good. And I think Seth Rollins is probably one of those guys where it's in 10 to 15 years, once he's gone, people are going to look back and be like, man, Seth Rollins was fucking good. And there's going to be some people who appreciate that right now. And there's going to be some people who are not going to appreciate that for like 10 years. I mean, it is what it is. That's the nature of, I would say, art, art in general. Art in sports is entertainment, art and entertainment. Like some people's TV shows. Like some people don't come across a TV show until it's after it's canceled and they really enjoy it. Like I like Scrubs, the TV show Scrubs. I never watched it when it was actually on because I don't watch sitcoms like that. But when I did catch a couple of episodes of Scrubs, it actually a girl put me on it. I was like, this show is fucking funny as fuck. It's already off the air, but you can always go back and, really absorb the work that he was doing. And I think Seth Rollins is one of those guys that you're going to go back and really enjoy a lot of the Seth Rollins stuff, even if you don't like it right now. Because people, as far as history always moves forward, people always hate the current thing and lionize the past thing. So there's no doubt in a few years, people are going to be talking about how new big guy is nothing like Omos and, new big guy sucks. We're going to bring back Omos and it's going to be that kind of shit. Because that's just how the world functions. And for some reason, people are kind of blind to that fact. But this was all about the United States title. And the United States Championship is held by one Austin Theory, who is backstage, and it was asked whether he cares who he's wrestling next week. And Austin Theory says when he looks at Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley, he's looking at two guys who the business has passed him by. He's looking at the past. And that he is living in the now, and he is the future. He is the now. And said that forever is just beginning. He then runs into, oh God, Mustafa Ali, who says that he made a cash-in joke. Austin Theory didn't like it, not one bit, and said that Mustafa Ali needs to quit because he keeps getting beat up. He's not going anywhere. His career sucks. And Mustafa Ali says that he has to fight for opportunities, unlike Austin Theory, and that he will be the United States champion eventually. So Austin Theory said, look, you want an opportunity, I'll give it to you right now. We'll fight tonight. But after I beat you tonight, I don't want to hear any more about any other opportunities. So they had the match, Austin Theory versus Mustafa Ali, and both of them almost died in this match. There was a top rope hurricanrana, in which people have been trying to go frame by frame to see which one of them tried to kill the other one. But it was ugly. And I think I blame it on Ali because of the way he hit that rope. And you could tell that Theory was trying not to go all the way over and land on his goddamn head. But, what happens, happens. Ultimately, this match was ruined by Dolph Ziggler, who attacked Theory. And Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali were yelling at each other because Dolph Ziggler is mad at Austin Theory for what happened a couple of weeks ago. I forgot about it, to be quite honest, because it was so long ago. And Ali's like, this was my chance. You took my chance away from me. And Dolph Ziggler was yelling at him about something. And Austin Theory just beat up both of them because they're both J-Bros. So he beat them both up, laid them both out, and then stomped away. Okay, so Dolph Ziggler is back. Dolph is back. I don't hate Dolph Ziggler. I just don't understand why he's in this position. We're dealing with something very weird here, where we keep being told that the United States Championship is the top title on Raw. And yet Mustafa Ali keeps fighting for it. Dolph Ziggler is fighting. God. Guys who aren't top guys are in the mix. You know, but this is supposed to be the top championship on Raw. You got Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley going to fight each other for it. And Mustafa Ali gets the title match because he irritated Austin Theory. And then Dolph Ziggler interferes to beat up Austin Theory. So it's like they got one foot in the Austin Theory needs help. So we're going to put him in there with veterans like Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler in the hope that he can get over. Versus they got one foot in the Austin Theory is the future. He's a top guy. He should be wrestling top guys. So we got Lashley and Seth Rollins there. So they're not sure which way they're going. You know, that they got him being super serious, cereal, Frosted Flakes. And it's awkward. This is real awkward. You know, like, make a decision. Is he going to be wrestling mid-card guys like Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler? Or is he going to be wrestling main event guys like Lashley and Seth Rollins? Okay, it's good that he has more contenders. I don't hate the idea of more contenders. But I'm not going to hold you up when I say I was not thrilled by the Mustafa Ali match. I didn't think we needed it. And I'm sitting here with Dolph Ziggler saying, what are we going to do with this guy? Because Dolph Ziggler's been around for 15 years or whatever, 16, 17 years. And he's an also-ran. And you talk about a guy who's the past. Dolph Ziggler is absolutely the past. So, I don't know. He's in that Kofi Kingston position where he's been around for so long, but he's still actually kind of young. He's only like in his early 40s. Like, you would think Dolph Ziggler's like 48. He's 56 in wrestling years, which has got to be like dog years, right? You're around for 3 years in wrestling. It's almost like being around for 15 fucking years because we see you every goddamn week. But Dolph has not been around as much as often, but I'm still just kind of like, I don't know what they're doing with Austin Theory. So I guess he's gonna have to deal with this situation before he wrestles, whether it's Seth or Lashley, and I'm guessing it's gonna be Seth. I just see that being the match. They're probably gonna have a surprise Brock interference on Lashley, cost him the match. Then set up Lashley Lesnar for Royal Rumble, and then Seth Rollins versus Austin Theory, probably on Raw or something. But all of this is it's intriguing in terms of contenders for the title, but when you consider that half of this thing is Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler, who have zero chance of winning, it's not that intriguing. It's not that interesting. But that's Monday Night Raw. This show dragged. They tried to do something with the JBL Invitational thing, but all the matches that spun out of the JBL Invitational Poker Tournament were stupid, and they lasted too long, and it was over petty squabbles, not anything that was major. No major storylines were furthered, really, except for maybe the Rollins and Lashley storyline. And they teased some things for the future, like Becky and Bianca, or Becky and Bayley, Becky and Rhea. But that's about it. You know, they teased some things, but no major things happened on this show. Nothing super took place. So it was just kind of like a very long, very episode of Monday Night Raw. But what do you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.